rights, the liberal media, and certainly the left in politics, have been hugely successful at setting an agenda over these last couple of decades of saying that opinions, points of view that they don't agree with are somehow unacceptable points of view, immoral points of view that simply should not be heard. And we've heard so much about hate crimes, particularly since the referendum. And I don't doubt that there have been some yobs that have said, some really unpleasant things to migrants living in this country. Mind you, I think those people were probably saying those things to them before the referendum. But what I've seen is that certainly on social media, when anybody expresses an opinion that says they might support, whether it's Trump or whether it's UKIP or whether it's much tougher immigration controls or whether it's, a genuine fear about not checking, the origins of people who are coming in from across the Mediterranean, they're met by an absolute hailstorm of abuse. And I mean, so much so. I simply can't believe, perhaps I deserve it, some of you might say, but I can't even believe some of the stuff that is put on Twitter saying I should be stabbed or killed there's something really very, very unpleasant going on here. And in this country, it is absolutely rife in our schools. I think particularly of the case of a 15-year-old called Joe Taylor, who down in Southampton during lunchtime was using one of the school computers, and the next thing he knew, his dad had been called in and the police were there, and Joe Taylor was in big problems. He had used the school computer to do something very inappropriate and very dangerous. And his father, couldn't imagine what the boy had done, and he'd been reported to the police by the school. He'd gone onto the UKIP website. This was in February of last year. He'd gone onto the website of a political party who 8 months before had won a national election. And the police told him that what he'd done, it really wasn't a very good thing. It's just amazing. Amazing that kind of demonisation is going on in our schools. And it's worse than that. Look at the universities today. Jermaine Greer, who has always been, a campaigner on the left, said something about transgender people that upset the students at Bristol University, and she's been no platform there too. What has happened to free speech? What has happened to respecting the fact that somebody else has a different point of view? And has it meant, and I'm asking you, are you somebody who wouldn't tell the truth to an opinion pollster? Are you somebody who now wouldn't tell your neighbour how you voted? Are you almost being made to feel ashamed of having views that are seen to be on the right? I think there is a real problem here. I think there is a real nastiness. In fact, I think the people that now call themselves the Liberals are the most illiberal and nasty people I've ever met in my entire life. Harry in Amersham, how do you see this?
Hi, Nigel. I just wanted to express the sort of view of a 19-year-old with sort of right-leaning views, perhaps. And I just want to express how hard it really is for someone of that age to express these ideas and sort of, get a point of view out there. Every time I've opened up about it in front of maybe peers, in front of adults, I've been accused of being a racist, accused of leading to what my parents believed. It almost feels like if you do have those views of the right, you can't express yourself. You can't have any ideas towards that, and it's just you're basically demonised.
Harry, I had so many letters and emails come into me during the referendum from people of your age or indeed younger who at schools had expressed an opinion that they thought Brexit was the right result, to be virtually shouted down by their teachers and their classmates as if they're sort of guilty of witchcraft or, where is all this coming from? is there, in your view, is there sort of a built-in institutional bias in our schools?
I honestly think it's the media that's doing it. I think the media is disgracefully bad at influencing young minds, really sort of believe everything they read. And it's not saying that young people are stupid in any form. It's just saying that if there's a constant stream of media that is saying sort of, oh, you have to say this to fit in, you have to say this. It's almost like peer pressure. career politics.
Yes.
And I think that's the worst, most dangerous sort of thing that's possible.
Well, I've certainly experienced this myself, Harry, as you may have noticed. That I've gone on over the last sort of decade or so. I've gone on to mainstream media and expressed opinions that I thought were perfectly reasonable, normal ways, practical ways of looking at the world, to be met by a look of absolute horror and then condemnation. I mean, when I said 5 years ago that I'd called a train out of Charing Cross, a slow-stopping train, and it wasn't until we got past the fifth or sixth stop that I felt people around me were speaking English, and I didn't think that was right, and I didn't feel very comfortable. I mean, you'd think I'd said something absolutely abominable.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd think I was sort of had supported fascism or something extraordinary. And yet I find 5 years on that there are plenty of people even some in the Labour Party now, but lots in the Conservative Party who are saying, look, people have got to speak English or we can't integrate. It's not right that people feel divided within our communities. So certainly if you're the first out there with these views, you do take an extraordinary amount of abuse and vilification. And there was an amusing piece by Richard Littlejohn in the Mail last month, when he said it's a very tight call as to who's been the most vilified person in Western politics in the last year. Is it Nigel Farage or Donald Trump? Well, I knew what he was saying, but I volunteered for it, Harry. So I suppose, I can't really complain, nor can Gina Miller, who's brought that court case to the High Court to try and delay Brexit. If you put your head over the parapet, you're going to get abuse. But my concern, Harry, with your generation, isn't the media, it's social media. Because it seems to me, on social media, the campaigns that are organised against people that express conservative or patriotic views are absolutely vicious. Have you experienced that?
I mean, I have. I've put my opinion out there, and it has been shot down rather quickly. I sent out a few tweets during the whole Brexit ordeal, and they were rather quickly shot down. I even got sort of confronted about them in the actual real life, which was quite. And I wouldn't go as far as to say it was harrowing, obviously, because it's just words and it's just words coming back. But I mean, it was very much, you sort of felt like I didn't fit the narrative, so I wasn't allowed to express my opinion, and I was quite sort of disgusted by that, especially on social media, which is a place where you should be able to express any opinion. You should be able to sort of, as long as it's not hate speech, which, which obviously...
Yes, no. I mean, there are limits to free speech, Harry. I totally get that. I completely understand that. Has it made you feel more reluctant now about expressing your view?
Oh, well, yeah, of course. I mean, I don't openly express my view to anyone if I wanted to keep them as a friend, which is awful to say, I know, but I believe that's true.
We have something fundamentally wrong, Harry. Thank you for your call. Disturbing, though it is. Next we go to Ant One in Chelsea. What's your experience of this?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My experience of this is basically living in the capital. I've noticed over the months that leading up to the opinions of whether we're going to leave or not, there was a lot of malicious behaviour within the foreign nationalists living in the country, and that they were taking offence to people who were born here, who have lived in the capital for over 30 years, and taking offence to the way they spoke to them when they were saying, what was your view or opinion on the Brexit? And I would say firmly, knowing that we were going to leave, mainly because of the state of affairs in the country and has been going on for some time. So I wasn't surprised of us leaving. And basically their opinion was, well, shut me down, be maliciously twisting their sentences to make my view underheard, and basically being, I would say, racist towards my own views.
Yeah. Was this in sort of social gatherings, Ant? Was it sort of in the local bar, or
in public bars, or just in social places where I was hanging out, where you would pick up conversations going on around you, you might get mull into them, and also public places like community centres. I found that I was attending would be having a lot of conversations about these sort of things, and it was diverse conversations, and a lot of opinions were very argumentative towards the people that wanted to leave.
Is there an age dynamic, Ant, in this? Is there an age dynamic? Is it?
I'll be honest with you. Interesting to last caller saying, there's a whole array of the social media, the way that central media here portrayed leaving, and I think it's a cross board of ideologies that are being personalised to the person, and that they're putting them across and taking what they want from it, rather than looking at the whole picture. And again, you can get carried away. You got carried away with, with all the lies in the campaign. And I think that built up a lot of hatred towards people on the Leave and the Stay campaign. And I think that filtered down into the public eye. And again, the social masses, where the parents sit around the dinner table, they're talking about it, so it filters down to their children. They may have diverse opinions between the parents, and the children have those same diverse opinions. Go into schools, start talking about this to their friends, their social media, and then it gets stirred up, and then you have people like in the social media putting extra stories out there that ain't naturally true in the context of the story. It's sound bites, as they say.
But one side's more successful, one side is more successful than the other at this. You see, the Leave campaign are all liars. The whole campaign was a lie because too high a figure was used for what could be given to the National Health Service every week. The fact they've been telling us for half a century that it's only a common market, it'll never be political, don't worry your little heads about it, seem to have been forgotten completely. So they are more effective, it seems to me. That side of the argument are more effective at slagging us off than we are of them. That's my view. Thank you for telling us that. So we've heard two calls of people who now, it's really quite awkward for them to say what they think. Alex in Rotherhithe, what is your experience?
Good afternoon, Nigel. Nice to speak to you.
Good, thank you.
So I recently left LSE in London.
Yep.
And I studied there, and I must say that a lot of the things I heard, I'd be ashamed to tell my parents. They'd be really upset at some of the things that students were saying. So in one class, for example, we were discussing, it was the EU class, and we were talking about the referenda they had in Ireland where they repeated it when they got the wrong result.
Oh, yes, that's right. They said no, didn't they? Yeah, you can't do that.
Exactly. And earlier in the class, the teacher had criticised Vladimir Putin for holding some referendum in the Crimea, I think, and I suggested that it was a similar tactic. And I was laughed at by the class teacher for suggesting that this was, not the best way to go about things by repeating referenda when you get the wrong result. I've had someone try and suggest in a debate we had banning UKIP from campus because they don't fit the right values. This kind of thing is really rife. I've got a friend from another uni, UCL, where they wouldn't lay a poppy wreath. And this kind of thing is really... My family haven't been to uni, and I was quite proud to go.
Yes.
And I'd be ashamed to tell them these kind of things. Yeah,
and banning the Daily Mail newspaper, banning the Express newspaper. I've no doubt banning certain LBC programmes, but they'd love James O'Brien. But no, I mean, you're right. This is really what I wanted to spend this hour talking about. That it seems to me that, win or lose elections, I don't like hardline socialism. I can't stand the EU controlling our lives. But, if they win elections, I have to accept it because that's the way we live. And I don't agree with their opinions, but I don't say they should be banned or they're objectionable. I might personally find them objectionable, but of themselves, they're not objectionable. And yet... what we're seeing and what you've experienced, Alex, through our universities, I think is the worst crisis in terms of democratic thinking and free speech in British universities we have simply ever seen. It is genuinely shocking, and I'm sorry that you're yet another caller that has been through this experience. Well, we've had three of them. Maybe there are others of you who say, actually, the boot's on the other foot, and actually I've got left-wing views, and I'm being treated horribly out there. And if that's the case, let me know. Because if that is the case, then there's something even worse than I thought going on in our society. So are you keeping your centre-right views quiet? Would you share your views with a neighbour? Let me know. Call us on 0345 6060 973. I'm Nigel Farage, and the time now is 12:17.
This is LBC. Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
There's considerable concern over the New Year's honours, as yet again David Cameron, a man who I have to say I have a considerable degree of respect for, but this has always been a blot on the landscape. In the latest crop of dishonours, he's given a knighthood to the bloke who owned the mansion in which he and his family stayed after he was turfed out of number 10. I mean, how can that possibly be right?
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
When I opened my bakery, I spent more time filling in forms than filling sandwiches. I wanted to take the next step with my business and branch out into cakes, but I just couldn't find the time to learn. That was until I signed up for a Lloyds Bank Business Current account. It has loads of time-saving tools and features, so I can finally take a course. I bet I'll be sick of making donuts by the end of it. Or maybe not.
The Lloyds Bank Business Current account has time-saving tools and tips that can help your business. Lloyds Bank, for your next step.
Cosy nights in with the curtains drawn, mugs of cocoa to keep us warm. Because really, after all is said and done, all you need is a special someone. And when it comes to finding something new, you can start the conversation at Hello You. Sign up and browse profiles for free at helloyoudating.com and start the conversation today.
And now, the rest of that true story from Aldermartin, Baines and Cuthbert. After a fire at a residential development in 2015, the insurance loss adjusters were looking for an excuse not to pay out. But the experienced input and correct health and safety paperwork provided by ABC meant that a full and satisfactory settlement was quickly negotiated. No fuss, no hassle. For block management, ABC Estates will give your story an ending that'll make you as happy as Larry. Find out more at abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
Nigel Farage on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Free speech under attack. Those with conservative opinions told they should not hold them, and they certainly shouldn't express them in public ever. And a lot of texts and tweets coming in on this. One here, for the first time in my life, I actually am agreeing with Nigel Farage on LBC. Worried. Right, okay. There's only one view allowed at work. That's the Liberal left accepted agenda on everything, including Brexit, and we all know it. That's from somebody who works in London. And here's one here that I think really, really gets to the bottom of this. There is an age element to this. Older people are much more open to differences of opinion. You know, we looked at... I bet we should interview him, really, shouldn't we? But our 95-year-old Dam Busters veteran, I'm sure, whether he's on the left or the right, you know, he accepts general election results. He understands why people have different views to him. But there is something really awful going on with our younger generation, it seems to me. It's happening through school. It's reaching fever pitch at university, and in certain professions. You know, there is only one view allowed. I am worried about it. I don't like it. Is this just, you know, the so-called liberals who are winning this, or is it happening to them as well? I don't think so, but if it is, please let me know. Kevin in Finchley, what are your experiences?
Yeah, so I am completely opposite to a right-wing person. I read The Guardian.
Yep.
Love James O'Brien. Think it's brilliant.
Yep. Okay, good. Yep.
And, you know, so that's what you just set out my stall there.
Yeah, good. No, good.
Look, you know, I believe in tolerance. And also, I'm a black man. I'm a 6'1" black man from Jamaican heritage.
Yep.
My parents were immigrants. And so, you know, I'm not likely to go and vote for the UKIP party, okay? So, however...
Well, I don't know, Kevin. I don't know. I mean, don't start off this conversation and spoil it. There's plenty of black and ethnic minority people who will vote UKIP and did vote for Brexit.
I am certain that there are plenty. I'm just not one of them.
Okay, fine.
I'm a different school.
Okay, yeah.
All right. And anyway, listen, I have absolutely no idea. And I actually prefer if someone is actually honest and says, look, you know, I am right-wing, and I'm happy to have a conversation with them. I actually have mates who are right-wing, you know, and I talk to them when we have debates, we have laughs, and guess what? They respect me because they're decent human beings. They're not aliens. They're decent human beings. What they're not is that they are not racist. And that's the difference, a massive difference. Now, my concern, Nigel, and this is where I agree with you, okay, is that stifling freedom of speech to a certain extent, because I say freedom of speech can actually be too far, like there are certain American sites called Stormfront, etc., which is this disgraceful racial, you know, tones within this freedom of speech, which I absolutely hate. But, you know, decent, you know, respectful adult, you know, right-wing rhetoric is fine. And I would prefer if someone could say to me, look, you know, Kevin, you know, the reason why I don't like immigration is because I feel as though we're being outnumbered, and so I can have a debate with them and say, well, in fact, do you know that we're only 4% of the population? So in fact, you're factually wrong, and then they could push back and say, but where I live, it's 80%, and I say, okay, so I'm really sorry about that. I know, but you know, you need to kind of, and we'll have a debate, but at least that person is having a conversation with me. My concern is when people are stifled to the point where they start to build up resentment, and then they start to go to the extremes, and then they start to go into certain forums or comment sections, and they start being quite vile and hateful, and that's not helpful, because all that's happening at the moment, and that's the reason why there is a right wing in ascendancy. There's almost kind of, you know, and I hate this term, silent majority, but it's true. You know, there is I'm going to call them the resentful majority that's out there that is starting to bubble up and makes, unfortunately, the decent, you know, people who I could have a conversation with, they're starting to kind of, some of them, not all, are starting to kind of move to the fringes, which is quite scary.
I mean, Kevin, look, I think we both accept there are extremes on both of these. There are people who will gravitate towards, you know, some pretty extraordinarily unpleasant views on the right, and there are those on the left who advocate killing people because they hold different... So let's take both of those out of the equation for now. You know, you are a reasonable, sensible person who has a different view of the world to me. Fine, but I can meet you and have a beer with you. Well, I can't, it's dry January, but I could meet you and have a drink with you, and we would have a sensible, grown-up conversation, right? And whether we shifted each other a little bit, well, fine. If we do, we do. If we don't, we don't. My concern in this hour, Kevin, is why are there so many people who are on your side of the debate who seem to think that even reasonable debate on the centre-right of politics should be banned from university campuses? That's what I don't fully understand. Why is that happening?
I think, okay, there's always been a school of thought that, you know, when you're young, you tend to be more idealist, and you are, and you go to university, and it tends to be quite left-wing anyway, and when you kind of grow up and you've been knocked around a bit and you pay your taxes, you start to become a bit more right of centre, and that's like a natural life stage progression. But I agree with you. Look, if there are right-wing students, I mean, I went to university with a guy who was, I wouldn't say extreme right, but he was quite far right, and I got on really well with him because we could have good conversations, and I'd laugh at him, he'd laugh at me, and he was, you know, he thought Nelson Mandela, because I went to university in the 90s, he thought Nelson Mandela was a terrorist, and I disagreed with him, and you know, I met him about 5 years ago. And you know, he actually said, Kevin, you know, I'm really sorry. I was this way, and he's actually moved more to the left. Yeah. So it can go both ways. I think, look, you know, we all need to be adults. We all need to. For me, I just want tolerance and respect. And you know, if the left wing are shutting people down from the right who want to have a conversation, don't do it, because you know, again, it breeds resentment, and then they go too far to the left or too far to the right.
Kevin, I wish everybody on the professed left was like you. Sadly, they're not. You're a proper grown-up, and thank you very much indeed for that very good, decent call. Joshua in Huddersfield, what is your experience of this debate?
Evening, Nigel.
Evening.
Well, I'm also, like some of your previous callers, 19, and attending university at the moment. And with Brexit, I was quite open about my support for Brexit, but I think I had most of my lecturers who are all left-wing. They were classic lefties who many of them did openly support Brexit, which I initially found quite shocking. But come Trump, I supported Trump from very early on. Main reason just because he wasn't a politician. He hadn't, you know, held public office before. And one experience that I can think of that kind of really got in my brain, that kind of woke me up to what I think it is with the kind of these hard left speech answers is, we were just talking, it was when they had the first ever primary in January, and Trump lost narrowly to Ted Cruz.
Yeah, that's right.
People couldn't conceive that anyone would actually vote for Trump, because in their mind, they just painted him up as literally Hitler. And they'd, you know, created this false image of him as this xenophobe, racist, X, Y, and Z. And they couldn't comprehend that whatever number, 100,000, whatever people voted for him. And it's the offhandedness of it that I think irritates me. The idea that anyone who disagrees with me must be racist because I'm perfect and just an X, Y, and Z.
And morally superior. Don't forget that bit, Joshua, please.
And I think it, with the whole kind of campaign to push against and silence it, these are the kind of the typical, probably more affluent, not working class background people who stand up for social justice and equal rights for women and equal rights for LGBT and that lot.
Yeah, no, I never.
Obviously, realising that.
I never forget, Joshua.
Yeah.
I never forget. In 2014, 2 weeks before the European elections, we were leading in the polls. There was a massive campaign. I mean, massive campaign through the media and social media to paint UKIP out to be a racist party, to try and taint us, to try and damage this huge electoral surge that we've been on. And it was really vicious. So what I did, I organised in Westminster a meeting, and I said, if you're a black or ethnic minority candidate for UKIP or supporter of UKIP, come to this meeting and let's show the media the nonsense they're talking. And I stood on the stage, and there were about 50 or 60 UKIP members, mostly London members, who were candidates for us in local elections and all the rest of it. And we had, every cross-section, you can imagine in terms of race and religion and gender orientation, whatever it was there on that platform. And yet outside, there were a group of middle-upper class students, many of whom live on trust funds, shouting out UKIP's racist. And I just love the contrast of that. And the fact they got it into their mindset that because we were even debating these issues, that we had to be condemned and we had to be shouted down. Joshua, has any of this made you reluctant to tell people what you think?
Oh, absolutely. I would, I'm genuinely frightful to admit I've openly support Trump.
Dreadful.
I've said when directly asked that I would vote Trump over Clinton because, goodness me, it's Hillary Clinton. But what you were saying before, I think what it is what irritates particularly the hard left most is when people who they claim to defend and stand up for, like gay people, black people, when they have the gall to disagree. I know.
And Joshua, what they really hate is losing. So 2016 was a really bad year for those guys. Listen, I'm sorry that you're being made to feel embarrassed about your views. Let's hope the world becomes a better place and you can express them freely. So I want to hear from you guys out there, the silent majority. If you're on the centre right, do you have to bite your tongue? Now's your chance to tell me why. Call on 0345 6060 973. I'm Nigel Farage. The time now is 12:30. Here with the news headlines is Charles Rowe.
The outgoing EU ambassador has called on staff to challenge ill-founded arguments and muddled thinking in his resignation letter. Sir Ivan Rogers has left his post early before Britain negotiates its exit. West Yorkshire police say a spontaneous protest has taken place in Bradford at the shooting of a man who died in a planned operation. Traffic was blocked earlier. 28-year-old Mohammed Yasar Yaqub was killed on the M62 near Huddersfield on Monday evening. A black man's to receive more than £8,000 in compensation from 4 Chelsea fans who racially abused him in Paris. Suleiman Silla was stopped from boarding a metro train in 2015. LBC weather, mostly cloudy with some wintry showers, feeling less cold, a low of 4 with a cloudy start and some bright spells to come eventually, a high of 7 degrees.
LBC.
When we make the right decision once, life can be a lot simpler. That's why we created Flipper. One simple decision that means you never overpay for energy. Throughout the year, we compare energy tariffs on your behalf and flip you onto the best deal. Sign up once, pay a flat fee once a year, and put energy bills out of your mind once and for all. Sign up now at flippercommunity.com and never overpay for energy again. Auto renewal after 1 year. Conditions apply.
It's amazing what you have at your fingertips. Emails, photos, banking. Yep, your smart devices keep getting smarter. But so do all those cyber criminals. They keep coming up with new ways to get at the personal things on your phone, tablet and computer. To keep them secure, always download the latest software and app updates. They contain important security upgrades which help protect your device from nasty viruses and hackers. Be cyber aware. Visit cyberaware.gov.uk.
Save time, save money. Upgrade your car in the Car Giant sale. Now on.
It's how London buys its cars. Car Giant.
The new year is here, and with it all those health kicks and resolutions. So whether you're working out at the gym or working out how to use the new juicer, make a New Year's promise that's worth sticking to and switch to digital radio. You'll get all your favourite stations plus extra digital stations, and you can listen in lots of ways. A DAB digital radio, on a connected speaker, or take it with you wherever you go on your tablet or smartphone. Get set for 2017 with digital radio.
To find out about the many ways to listen to digital radio, visit getdigitalradio.com.
If you love radio, go digital.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Nigel Farage.
Well, a number of young people on the centre-right now really saying that they're actually quite frightened, socially or at work or wherever it may be, to express their opinions. Texts and tweets, storming in. I've started just being upfront and shameless about it now. I'm so bored of being told I can't have an opinion. It's madness, Samantha. So it's like coming out now, isn't it? Now, if you want to talk about immigration, or you want to leave the EU, or you might, horror of horrors have once voted UKIP, it is literally, you're being made to come out because it's actually much easier not to, and coming out's the brave, difficult thing to do because you'll get slagged off if you do it. Nigel, it's because ordinary people are afraid to admit their right-wing views that the pollsters are always getting it wrong. Stan? You're the man. You're absolutely right. They cannot. The pollsters, frankly, a lot of people won't even speak to pollsters because they see them as the establishment. And those that will, as you say, are frightened in case they get marked down on a list somewhere as thinking we should control our borders, and wouldn't that be awful? Our next caller is from Brussels. David, good morning.
Yeah, it is very good morning.
it's
very late here.
1:30 there, isn't it? Yeah. David, tell me your story, please.
Well, I've got to take issue with you blaming the left on this, to tell the truth.
Okay.
I'll give you a bit of my background. I work with the ANC. My wife's a Belgian politician.
Yeah.
My best friend's a gay Venezuelan. My business partner's a Muslim. And I live in Belgium, yet I still have to experience everything that you experience because of certain views that I have, and they're not to the right necessarily. I just question things, and because I question things, I get exactly the same as you do. Well, this isn't about the left. This isn't about the right.
Give me an example, David.
Some sort of a liberal elite.
Give me an example, David, of a view that you might express that might sort of meet with horror in a sort of Belgian, bar.
Gay marriage.
Yeah.
I said I don't believe in gay marriage because I believe that it was a religious thing, and it's insensitive to a lot of the religions to sort of hijack marriage and call it marriage. I said have a civil partnership. Respect people who are religious and let them have their sort of marriage tag, and you have a different tag. But try and have a compromise. It may be right or it may be wrong, but I'm just expressing another opinion. Oh, my God, you think I've turned into a Nazi.
Yeah, but David, you may consider yourself to be on the left, but I would suggest that on that issue, the view that you're expressing would be seen by most people actually to be on the conservative right, and that's why you're getting abused. Do you see what I mean?
I would actually have to disagree with you on that as well.
Well, go on, then.
Because a lot of my friends, actually my gay Venezuelan friend, he thinks exactly the same. There are a lot of people on the left that actually think about that, but they're probably even more scared to say so.
Yes. Yeah, no. I'm sure that's right. And yes, as you say, there are things that you just cannot discuss or but generally, the general point I'm making, David, that, if somebody comes on this show, and says, look, I'm a Marxist, I think all property's theft, the state should nationalise everyone's house, and take away all private property. It is a very, very extreme opinion, and yet the amount of abuse that person would get is as nothing if somebody said, on the right, I think for the moment we have to stop, as Trump did in fact, for the moment we have to stop all Muslim immigration until we can get a proper vetting procedure in place. Their lives would be literally unlivable. The person with the left wing...
Again, is Trump really on the right?
No.
Says he's on the right. That is another question, because the people that actually support him are technically hard-working Americans. So is he really on the right, or is he actually the left?
He's not a classic...
If you look at like what he's just done today, where he's basically said, no, you can't have this corruption thing and hide it.
Yeah.
He's basically come out, and that is a pretty left-leaning thing. I mean, he's fallen in line with the Democrats.
I think, David, left and right is out of the window, all right? I think that what is now defining politics across the West is our attitude towards society and towards our communities. Whether we basically take a small c conservative view that we want to live in a state that is a nation, where we govern ourselves, where we're tolerant of all, but we control our borders, or whether we're on the other side of the argument and we actually think we've got a supranational future, being part of bigger blocks and entities and being completely relaxed about the free movement of people and unworried by the levels of religious diversity in some of our cities. That, I think, they are the basic fault lines that I think is now dividing up politics. Sounds to me, David, like you're somebody who's got a good point of view, is not afraid to put it, and perhaps even if he gets some stick, will stay with his position. You never know. I might bump into you in a bar in Brussels one day and we'll have a very good chat. And thank you at this late hour for your call. Moving on to Steve in Mitcham. Steve, what are your views on free speech? Are you frightened to say what you think?
Yes, I am, to be honest with you, Nigel. I'll give an example. This weekend, we decided, my partner and I, to go to Blenheim Palace down in Oxfordshire, the home of the leader of the Conservative Party and the actual leader of the British in the Second World War.
Well, it was his birthplace, wasn't it, Blenheim? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The guy, as far as I'm aware, I was taught in school that the guy, he guided us in our darkest hours. He was there for the British, and to be honest with you, to my knowledge, okay, he's done a few things. He'd done a few things that were bad, very bad. But in all honesty, to my way of thinking, he was the guy who got us through the Second World War and stopped the Nazi jackboot coming into this country. But we stood alone against the might of Germany and Italy and Japan. And I certainly, and my partner, we decided to, while we were at Blenheim Palace, to visit the little grave, the church and the little graveyard where he's interred.
At Bladen, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Forgive me, because I'm a bit nervous. We just decided to visit, and we sort of I put a little snippet on media, and I was absolutely lambasted for it. I was just so surprised. I just sort of thought to myself, yeah, I know that everybody's
Steve,
got bloods on their hands.
Steve, this was abuse about his views on religion or his...
No, it was basically, Nigel, it was atrocity related atrocities that he had committed, and probably, I mean, as far as I was concerned, yes, it was probably justified that they said it, but I was just, it got out of all proportion.
This is the anti-empire lot, isn't it? Yeah, this is the mob who think we should apologise for absolutely everything we've ever done in our entire lives, and yes, they do drag Churchill into it. Steve, all I can say to you is that it sounds like you're pretty shocked by this experience, but I'm afraid that social media can be a wonderful force for good. You can find out things, you can book tickets, you can do all sorts of order takeaways, you do all sorts of things. But when you put out an opinion on social media or an image that relates you to something, you can take a shed load of abuse. My advice to you, Steve, absolutely, is completely ignore all of them and go on doing the things with your partner that you think matter and that you enjoy. Ignore the bullies. Chloe in Derby, hello. What do you make of it all?
Hello. Oh, it's such a pleasure to talk to you. I'm just so thankful that somebody like you can put your head above the parapet and, take one for the team for all of us, because it's absolutely so rare to see these days.
Well, thank you, Chloe. What's your experience of free speech and the left being vile about the right?
Well, I'm in my 20s. I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
I have a lot of left-leaning, I would say, political views. I believe in equality for gays. I believe in equality for transgender, civil rights. I would say I'm quite sort of left-leaning, actually, but if you wanted to sort of express an opinion about leaving the European Union, I'm a very hard Brexiteer myself. You couldn't put that on Facebook or social media. You couldn't do that. You would lose friends. I'm absolutely ashamed of my generation, because the amount of vitriol you get from them is so incredible. And to think that they sort of call themselves liberal is quite scary, really.
Chloe, what's gone wrong? How have we got to this point where, our universities are banning Germaine Greer for being an extremist? What the hell has happened?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm a bisexual myself, and if you were to express, a viewpoint that, I'm for freedom of religion, but if it came to sort of harm somebody, so if someone was proposing to throw gays off a building, which they do in some countries, and I obviously think that's quite an illiberal thing to do.
Quite illiberal. That's a slight understatement, isn't it? I think.
Yes, exactly. I mean, an atrocious thing to do. But
quite.
If you were to express those views, it's like you're talking about Satan being your master. It's absolutely atrocious.
So, Chloe, something awful has gone wrong. I mean, I would always expect universities to be places where strong opinions, strong debates would happen. I mean, the whole point of the big union debates and all the rest of it is that, they got speakers from all perspectives to come and give their view. And I thought the point of university was to expose young people to as many possible different viewpoints as possible. And as part of that maturing process, they made their own minds up where they stood on these issues. What I'm now seeing happening, and I'm getting the evidence from lots of young people, and you're another one of this generation, is that actually it seems that a majority of our young people now call themselves liberals and are yet profoundly illiberal. Something rotten is happening out there. Chloe, thank you very much indeed for your call. I'm Nigel Farage here on LBC. It's 12:45.
This is LBC. Coming up at 1 on LBC, Darren Adam.
Welcome to Fat Cat Wednesday. Top bosses at top companies will already have made more money by today than the typical worker will all year. Theresa May has said she wants to crack down on excessive executive pay. Do you think she can?
Leading Britain's conversation, Darren Adam. This morning from 1 on LBC.
How many tablets did you take this morning? On average, people over 55 say 4. That's over 100 a month. Well, at least for your painful joints, there's an alternative treatment. Voltarol 12-hour gel works deep in the joint to fight pain and inflammation all day long. Voltarol 12-hour gel. Let's hear it for the joy of movement. Ask your pharmacist.
Voltarol 12-hour Emigel P 2.32% gel contains diclofenac diethylammonium for relief of pain and inflammation. Always read the label.
Here's one for Alessia Sanazaro, co-founder of Chuzik. Her app finds beats for happy feet. She's rocking her own business, yeah? But every leading lady needs backup. And by GoDaddy, she found it. With domain and web hosting to put her business online, now she's got investors putting their hands up in the air.
Go Chuzik, GoDaddy. Taking your business online.
The BT Great January Sale on broadband, TV and mobile is now on. With savings of up to 33%. Get a great deal on the UK's most powerful Wi-Fi signal versus major broadband providers. An exceptional price with our top TV package and superb offers on our award-winning SIMs and smartphone plans. Don't miss up to 33% off in the BT Great January Sale. Join today. Visit bt.com/sale.
Offer ends 31st of January 2017. New customers. BT Infinity 83% UK coverage. Subject to availability. Terms apply.
Save time, save money. Upgrade your car in a Car Giant sale. Now on.
It's how London buys its cars. Car Giant.
Nigel Farage on LBC.
Conservative opinion should be banned. Discussing immigration means you're racist. We're all guilty. We're all guilty of hate crimes. We're all ghastly. Those of us that have supported Brexit have stirred up fear and hatred. We should not be allowed to speak on university campuses. We should be barred from public life. UKIP should be closed down as a political party. Believe me, these are the kinds of things that are being said on social media every single day, and nearly all of it is coming from a younger generation. Older people, regardless of their opinion, and they can argue and fight it out, but I find with middle-aged and old people, they have respect in a democracy for other points of view, something I fear we're losing amongst our younger generation. We go now north of the border to Edinburgh. Alex, what can you tell me about being a university student in Scotland?
Hi, Nigel. You were touching upon the manner in which the liberal left establishment sort of routinely suppresses people of a particular current of opinion.
Yes.
Particularly those to the right of centre-right. As I'm sure you're probably aware, you've had a few experiences at university. This sort of behaviour is particularly apparent on university campuses today. There was a case just a couple of years ago at UCL, where students were attempting to form a Nietzsche society after the German philosopher. It was really just, the idea was just to discuss people of a right-wing dispensation, people like Edmund Burke, etc.
Yes.
And almost immediately upon trying to establish society, the UCL Student Union decided to ban it on the grounds that it could lead to quote-unquote fascism. And it's worth bearing in mind that this is a university that has a political society for virtually every current of opinion on the left. There's even a communist society. That is, people can gather to discuss an ideology responsible for the deaths of tens of millions.
Yes.
But people on the right are sort of swept into societies.
Yes, it's rather right.
To maybe
it's rather the point I was making.
Society and Tory society.
I was making that point a few minutes ago, that if you say that all people's houses should be taken from them and owned by the state, you'll oh, isn't he a wonderful left-wing eccentric? But you say something that's on the right, and you should be barred and banned. I mean, are you still studying, Alex?
Yes, I'm in my final year.
In your final year. And did you find during the referendum that you refrained from telling people your opinion?
Not particularly, no. But I think that you haven't touched on this so much, but I think that with the whole point of the higher education now is that they sort of locked off the right end of the spectrum. You can learn about conservative ideas, you can learn about liberal ideas, socialist ideas, Marxist ideas. You can't learn about any sort of radical right-wing ideas in the university context unless you're being adversarial and you're saying you're disavowing groups that are on the right. I mean, for example, I think this has been almost a tactic. It's been a way of framing the debate such that virtue and morality is synonymous with what you think rather than how you actually believe it. Peter Hitchens, the social conservative commentator, often said that. He would say that the left believe that virtue is about what you think rather than how you actually behave. And the truth is that most people in society now are opposed to certain views, not because they've reached them through reason. I think it's because they think they're worried about what people might think of them.
Yes. It's this attempt, isn't it, on the left to sort of own the moral high ground and to say that other people that are not with us are inferior and are necessarily bad people. Alex, you make a good point that effectively right-wing debate and right-wing thought and even right-wing groups and societies are being, as you put it, lopped off out of the university system. Thank you very much for that point. Next we go to Kirk in Barnet. Kirk, hello.
Hi, Nigel. Huge honour. Huge fan of yours.
Well, thank you.
I'm 26 years old. I haven't actually been to university, but 4 of my family members have, and a recent family gathering with them over the festive period has opened my eyes to a huge amount of stuff.
Yeah.
Because basically,
tell me all.
Four of my family members have been to university, and since they've come back, they're extremely pro-Remain, extremely anti-UKIP, extremely anti-Donald Trump, and because my mother and I are the only two members in the family who are pro those three aspects, because it's gotten around the family, it caused a huge bust-up because we don't talk about politics, but they like to bring it up. We've been called racist, xenophobic, bigoted, homophobic,
Oh, right.
for some weird reason.
Yeah.
And I think it's got something to do with because Richard Dawkins, as videos of him and YouTube speaking about the regressive left and the far left in universities. And the moment my younger nieces have come back from university, they sound like the biggest social justice warriors you could ever meet, like the thought police.
So was it a really happy, a really great family Christmas thing? Was it?
This was Boxing Day, actually, to be precise.
Well, very appropriately named then, wasn't it? So it's almost as if your relatives have sort of metamorphosised at university. That's really what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of like a cult.
Gosh, I tell you what, if I said that, I'd be all over the front pages tomorrow and I'd be in terrible trouble. But, no, I do understand what you're saying. I mean, it is groupthink on a most extraordinary scale, isn't it?
Yeah, and because I describe myself as a centrist libertarian, anti-establishment Republican, very long-winded.
Yeah.
But my family actually had the nerve to call me right-wing before I even announced my ideologies, because the truth is they're so far left. Anyone more right than them is right-wing, because one of my aunts said to me, "Oh, what's wrong with Marxism?" When I questioned her, and I was like, well, you know, you decried everything else.
Oh, no, look, come on. She's perfectly... It's perfect. I mean, come on. Let's be honest about it. I mean, Marxism really hit the big time 100 years ago with the Russian Revolution. Since it came into being, I think they've managed to kill about 160 million of their own people in various regimes. It's brought total poverty and absolute misery. It's a complete and total disaster, and yet people say it's okay. I don't get it.
And cultural appropriation. She told me if I wore a Japanese anime T-shirt, that would be culturally inappropriate.
Kirk, I honestly, I mean, I think you've got to. I think you need to get out more, Kirk, and perhaps go and work on a kibbutz or go and volunteer somewhere else around the world next Christmas, because clearly you can't go through that experience again. But you're right. You know, normal people go to university, according to Kirk, and come back as if they've been programmed. Something is very, very wrong. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to go to James in Chatham. James, hello.
Oh, hello, Nigel. I just want to say thank you very much for standing up to our country, you know, with all the anti-liberals and that. I just think it is disgusting, our generation, the way we live now. We can't say anything without offending anyone, if you know what I mean.
How old are you, James?
I'm 21.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I went to, oh, God. Yeah, I went to a school, basically, in Chatham, a special needs school, because I've got autism and learning difficulties.
Yeah.
But you couldn't voice an opinion on immigration without, like, offending anyone. It's very hard to, you know, because I don't want to get caught by them or anything. I couldn't care. I left about 3 years back. But it's like... one time, well, no, not one time, nearly all the time, they had a flag that represented each country, but they didn't have the Union Jack. I questioned that, and he said, in case it might offend other nationalities. But how can that offend someone who's, if you know what I mean? Because our country was built upon immigration, wasn't it, from generations, you know? And... it troubles me.
Well, the argument, James, was never against immigration. The argument was against uncontrolled immigration in terms of quantity and quality. And what the left did is, for years, they managed to make it a subject that nobody dared even talk about. And people like me that did dare talk about it got shouted down royally. James, I'm sorry you've had a tough time on this. And the last call, and we'll have to be quick, is Asim in Edinburgh. Hello.
Hello, hi Nigel. I've just been listening to your show. It's very interesting, and I would just like to say, share my experience, which has been a bit different. So you can guess from my name, I was born a Muslim. I'm no longer a Muslim. You know, I don't agree with a lot of the things involved in that religion, but I've moved towards a more kind of centre-right position at the moment. Now, I think part of the problem is there's a kind of group mentality going on. So I'm able to express my views. I'm, Pakistani ethnicity, was born Muslim. No one's going to accuse me of being racist or against, have an ideological thing. So I'm able to, in a very subtle way, I wouldn't openly, be very careful with my choice of words. But I'm able to do it. But I can imagine the people maybe calling who maybe are white who have got a different
Yeah, it's very difficult.
I assume to be racist, unfairly and not able to express their views.
Well, I'm sorry, Asim, we've lost your line, which is a great shame. Well, very interesting hour, that. I think there is a real problem here. I saw it during the referendum, when, without reference to anybody, the vice-chancellors of 21 of our universities said that their students should support Remain. I thought the point of university was to be impartial, was to let young people be exposed to both sides of an argument and make up their mind. Maybe it's to do with money. Maybe it's to do with the fact we have 300 Monet professors in British universities. Something awful has gone wrong. Our young are not respecting democracy in a way the older generation do. Well, thanks very much this evening. It's been huge fun. I've really, really enjoyed doing this tonight. They're even having me back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. Leading Britain's conversation at 4 a.m, it's going to be Steve Allen. But next on LBC, it is Darren Adam.
Thank you. Later, 3 out of 5 workers will